Presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, March 13th of 2026, Friday the 13th. Your reader for this first hour is J.J. Patek. And we will open with the front page. Albany's lawmakers okay plans to tax the rich and boost Buffalo aid. This is from Robert Gavin of the Albany Bureau Chief. Tax hikes on the rich, increased state aid for Buffalo. Rebates of up to $500 for cost-battered utility ratepayers. Democrats who control the state legislature approved all of these proposals in tentative state spending plans that passed in either the Assembly or Senate on Thursday. Whether they become law now depends on whether they are adopted the final state budget, due April 1st, that Governor Kathy Hochul will negotiate with Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie, a Democrat from Bronx, and the Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, a Democrat from Yonkers. The dual plans passed as resolutions included or expanded on many Hochul-backed proposals, such as her plans to expand child care and pre-kindergarten programs for every 4-year-old in New York, to end taxes on tipped wages, extend corporate franchise taxes, and impose taxes on nicotine alternative products. Each resolution adds billions in spending on top of Hochul's proposed $263 billion budget, prompting criticisms from Republicans who serve in the minority of both houses. The vote just went along party lines. The Assembly's $266 billion resolution is passed by an unofficial vote of 98 to 48. The Senate's nearly $270 billion resolution passed 38 to 22. Hochul, a Buffalo-born Democrat, has made affordability her top issue as she faces re-election this year against Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman, a Republican. While her budget last year included inflation rebate checks, she has repeatedly opposed increasing taxes on the rich in the budget, which was heavily pushed by New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Both the Assembly and Senate resolutions proposed new income tax surcharges on New Yorkers who earn more than $5 million in addition to other taxes. The governor looks forward to working with the legislature to pass a budget that makes New York safer and more affordable for working families, Hochul spokesperson Cara Cumuletti said. Hochul has proposed increasing aid to the city of Buffalo by $40 million, totaling nearly $206.3 million, as it faces budget deficits in the tens of millions over the next 2 years. The Senate resolution included the governor's increase. The Assembly resolution added $16.8 million on top of the governor's proposed increase. In a statement, Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan, a member of the Senate until he took office on January 1st, said he was grateful to Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes, a Democrat from Buffalo, for helping to get aid for the city. We know there's a long way to go before the budget is finalized, Ryan said. As the budget process moves forward, we'll continue working with our partners in state government to pass legislation that will help us help ourselves as we work to close this year's budget gap and address the structural deficit the city faces in years ahead. The Assembly's plan included $500 rebates for residential utility ratepayers who earn $150,000 or less, while ratepayers who earn between $150,000 and $300,000 would receive $300 rebates. Utility rate hikes have put a significant strain in the pockets of many New Yorkers. Most customers are paying more for the delivery fee than for their actual usage, said Assembly member Karen McMahon, a Democrat from Williamsville, who voted for the resolution. Our proposal would put money back into the pockets of hardworking New Yorkers in the form of energy rebate checks while finding alternative ways to offset rising costs, such as freezing gas and electric rate increases. Assemblymember Jonathan Rivera, a Democrat from Buffalo, highlighted aid in the resolution for public schools and SUNY institutions, such as the University at Buffalo. He said he believed Ryan had laid out the needs for Buffalo to the legislature. His approach has been consistent and his messaging has been clear, Rivera said. All of us in Western New York are eager to do whatever we can to make sure that Buffalo is on the right track. In a statement, Senator Jeremy Zellner, a Democrat from Tonawanda, highlighted cuts at the federal level impacting New York. We're in a challenging time, as everyone knows, he said. Someone has to stand up and take leadership, and I think that's what our conference did today. Senate Minority Leader Robert Ort, a Republican from North Tonawanda, was more critical. In response to New Yorkers' affordability struggles and cries for relief, state Democrats increased spending on top of Governor Hochul's record budget by more than $7 billion and doubled down on green energy mandates that continue to make New York unaffordable, Ort said. What is not in the budget is just as important as what is, Ort added. Even at the staggering price tag of $269.8 billion, Senate Democrats still refuse to take any action on the pressing issues being faced by New Yorkers who are concerned about affordability, rising utility costs, runaway government spending, public safety, and tax hikes. Their only solution on affordability is more spending, and that is just not sustainable. Assemblymember Andrew Moulton, a Republican from Westfield, called the resolution a wish list that he hopes does not get enacted. The Assembly's one-house budget proposal is another example of Albany's priorities being out of step with the realities facing families in western New York, Molitor said in a statement. While residents across Chautauqua County are working hard to make ends meet, the state continues to push a budget that grows government instead of addressing the policies that are making life more expensive. Senator George Borrello, a Republican from Sunset Bay, called the spending plan of the Senate a fiscal train wreck. After months of proclaiming they are laser focused on affordability, state Democrats and the Senate Democrats have now shown exactly what is their twisted version of it, looking more like more spending, more taxes, more mandates, and more pain for the people who actually pay the bills in the state, he said in a statement. Both resolutions restored $26 million for the Niagara Frontier Transportation Authority's light rail system. The Senate included $100 million for lead pipe remediation, and the Assembly budgeted $100 for electric school buses, part of a plan to move away from fossil fuels that contribute to climate change. For analysis, Trump's goal line for his war on Iran continues to shift. This is from Amr Madani from the Associated Press. Facing jittery global markets and drooping poll numbers since launching a war with Iran, President Trump has cycled from calls for unconditional surrender to sounding amenable to an end state, in which case the Iran trades one hardline Ayatollah for another. Shifting comments from the Republican president and his top aides are adding to the precariousness of the 12-day-old conflict, which is impacting nearly every corner of the Middle East and causing economic tremors around the globe. With neither side budging, the war is now on an unpredictable path, and a credible endgame is unclear. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said on Tuesday it was up to Trump whether it's the beginning, the middle, or the end of the war. Trump, during the course of one speech at a House Republican gathering on Monday, went from calling the war a short-term excursion that could end soon to proclaiming we haven't won enough. We have hit them harder than virtually any country in history has been hit, and we're not finished yet, Trump told reporters at the White House on Wednesday. The vacillation has fueled criticism from those who say Trump lacks a clear goal. They didn't have a plan, Senator Mark Kelly, a Democrat from Arizona, told reporters. They have no timeline, and because of that, they have no exit strategy. Since ordering the Iran bombardment, Trump has continually shifted his timelines and goals for the war. Over the past few days, Trump has called for unconditional surrender of Iran's leaders, while suggesting that he's already succeeded in achieving his objective of decimating Iran's military. At the same time, Trump's team has sought to soothe anxious Americans that the war will not be long and drawn out, even as the president has insisted he has not ruled out the option of using U.S. ground troops. The U.S. military says it has effectively destroyed the Iranian Navy and made huge strides in defanging Iran's ability to launch missiles and drones at its neighbors. Yet the critical Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly 20% of the world's oil passes on a typical day, remains essentially closed to business, and Iranian leaders are unbowed. The Revolutionary Guard said Iran would not allow a single liter of oil through the vital waterway until the United States stops its bombing campaign. Ali Larijani, official offering a menacing message on Tuesday after Trump had threatened to attack Iran 20 times harder if Tehran stopped oil flowing through the strait. The sacrificial nation of Iran doesn't fear your empty threats, Larijani wrote on X. Even those bigger than you couldn't eliminate Iran. Be careful not to get eliminated yourself. Trump ally Newt Gingrich, a former Republican House Speaker, said the administration should have moved on securing the strait on day one of the conflict. If they can't keep it open, this war will in fact be an American defeat before very long, because the entire world, including the American people, will react to the price of oil if the strait stays closed very long. Gingrich said Trump has struggled to make his case to Americans about why preemptive action against Iran was necessary and how it squared with his pledge to keep the United States out of the forever wars of the past 2 decades. Thus far, 7 U.S. troops have been killed and about 140 injured in the retaliatory salvos from Iran. One of the several reasons Trump has offered to justifying launching the war was that he had a feeling that Iran was getting set to attack the U.S. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt slightly amended that position, telling reporters that the president had a feeling that was based on fact. But Pentagon officials have told congressional staffers in private briefings that the U.S. does not have any idea that Iran was planning to preemptively attack the U.S. Recent polls shows Trump's decision to attack Iran has not come with the rallying around the flag effect that has typically accompanied the start of recent U.S. wars. About half of voters in Quinnipiac and Fox News polls said the U.S. military action in Iran makes the U.S. less safe, while only about 3 in 10 in each poll said it has made the country safer. A CNN poll found about half of U.S. adults thought the military action would make Iran more of a threat to U.S., while only about 3 in 10 thought it would lessen the danger. In that CNN poll, about 6 in 10 U.S. adults said they trusted Trump not much or not at all to make the right decisions about the U.S. use of force in Iran. Treading carefully after British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez faced the wrath of Trump, who deemed them not sufficiently supportive in backing the war of choice, Trump on Wednesday lashed out again at Spain, which said it will not allow the U.S. to use jointly operated bases in southern Spain in any strikes not covered by UN Charter. I think they've been very bad. Not good at all, Trump said. We may cut off trade with Spain. Even German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who has been broadly supportive of the U.S.-Israeli campaign against Iran, said on Tuesday that more questions arise with every day of the war. Trump has chosen to deflect responsibility for this in southern Iran on the first day of conflict that killed 165 people. Trump on Saturday blamed the attack on Iran, saying its security forces are very inaccurate with munitions. On Monday, after the investigative group Bellingcast posted verified video that showed a U.S. Tomahawk cruise missile hitting a Revolutionary Guard facility near the school, causing the explosion, Trump again insisted it could have been Iran's fault, but said that he would accept whatever a U.S. investigation into the matter might find. The president erroneously claimed that Tehran had access to Tomahawks, a U.S. manufactured weapon system that is only available to the U.S. and a few close allies. Asked by a reporter, Leavitt did not directly answer why Trump falsely asserted that Iran had access to U.S.-made missiles. Instead, she responded in part that the president has the right to share his opinions with the American public, while noting that he has said he'll accept the conclusion of that investigation. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat from New York, has told reporters that Trump's claim is beyond asinine. Again, he says whatever pops into his head, no matter what the truth is, Schumer said, and we all know he lies, but something as formidable as this, it's appalling. Senator Kevin Cramer, a Republican from North Dakota, was among Trump's allies, gently making the case that it was important for the administration to clarify what happened to the school. Cramer said the military must do everything you can to eliminate those mistakes going forward, but you also can't undo it, he added. And you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and the time is now 15 minutes past the hour, and we are going to move to the editorial page. Bright spots. There's new amenities filling in gaps. Allen's popularity has hit a national milestone. A new spot coffee on Jefferson Avenue understandably thrilled Latasha Thompson, an Eastside resident and registered nurse that longed for such an amenity in her neighborhood but didn't know her husband had already discovered it. As reported by the News Francisca Bond, Thompson playfully outraged when she found out her husband had failed to mention the brand new neighborhood coffee spot he'd been patronizing. But it was all good, including the coffee that's now being served from a cafe kiosk outside of Jefferson Avenue, Sunoco. Spot Coffee's owner, Mohammed Ahmed, 32, has been a fixture in the neighborhood. His family's been serving the east side surrounding Ellicott, Pratt, Willard, and Broadway Fillmore neighborhoods at their Sunoco at 155 Jefferson Avenue for decades. Ahmed started working there at 15 and is now a third-generation owner, along with his father, Ahmed Abu Hamra. The new coffee shop is a big deal, even though it is not a full-blown cafe, because the area needs something like this within walking distance. It has limited transportation access, and many residents don't have a personal vehicle. The new Spot Coffee is a rare convenience for the Pratt Willard neighborhood, especially because it offers a large food menu, including 7 kinds of salad, chicken souvlaki wraps, and turkey subs. As Thompson said, I have transportation, but I think it means a lot for the ones that don't, the ones with mobility issues and things like that. They can't get from A to Z. It means a lot that you can come here and get Spot Coffee. Are you kidding me? Then Turf Triumph. Another venture in the city of Buffalo. This one in the world of sports and recreation comes in the form of the first indoor turf facility within city limits. As reported by the News' Mike Petro, it's been packed. The $12 million Thomas M. Smith Athletic Center at the Don Morris Field at Shoshone Park has demonstrated that there is a great demand for this kind of facility in the city. Teams appreciate not having to travel to Buffalo suburbs for turf field training and play. It helps that the $35,000 square foot indoor multi-sport and recreational facility on Hurdle Avenue in North Buffalo is fully funded by the city. The welcome mat is out for community residents for free. Most afternoons are taking full advantage of the indoor turf playing field and the secondary turf training field. And finally, city-based teams have their own facility for training and play. It's a big step. And then Allen adoration. More people nationwide are discovering what a great guy Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen is as they're demonstrating their support. Another Petro story unveils a fan sentiment study that confirms Allen's national popularity to the point that he's rated the most loved player in the National Football League. As reported by the Las Vegas Insider, Allen secured the #1 overall spot in positive fan sentiment. He's earned a love score of 10.0, the strongest approval rating recorded in the data set, according to the analyst of Reddit discussions across the NFL and team subreddits. Those who have always believed in the Bills quarterback are not surprised. Allen's marketability since has been named the league's 2024 most valuable player has made him the ideal representative in sponsorship deals for national and global brands. He's also topped the list for the NFL jersey sales during 2025, the second time that's happened after having the top-selling jersey of the 2022 season. But it's Allen's competitiveness, risk-taking, playing style, visible emotion, sideline energy, public accountability after losses, team-first mentality, and authentic personality, the study said fans respond to. Longtime Bills fans already knew that, but they're still proud of their quarterback for the national kudos. Go Bills. And then from another voice, an article about advocacy from Alicia Fellows, who is a CEO of Person-Centered Services. In this year's New York State budget, it's critical that we invest our most vulnerable neighbors. People with intellectual and developmental disabilities rely heavily on care coordination organizations which directly connect individuals and families to the care, support, and opportunities that maximize their quality of life. Such organizations are required for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to access the Medicaid waiver services they need in New York State. They must not be forgotten in this year's budget. As CEO of Person-Centered Services, I've seen firsthand just how life-changing and transformative care coordination can be. Person-centered services supports more than 18,000 children and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities across 18 counties. Care coordinators work with individuals, families, community providers, and other organizations to make sure the dots are connected. Robert from Jamestown was able to overcome homelessness and frequent hospital stays through support from person-centered services. His care coordinator, with guidance from our specialized clinical team, linked him to permanent housing, mental health treatment, and a stronger circle of support. Care coordination organizations have been excluded from the state's targeted inflationary increase for the past 2 years. Restoration is needed for organizations not to only maintain and retain a strong workforce, but also addressing rising operational costs due to inflation and continue providing care for over 135,000 residents. We call on the state to restore care coordination organizations as eligible programs in the targeted inflation increase. As advocates for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, we also call on the state to expand medication administration by trained direct support professionals. We also support the expansion of Medicaid coverage for family caregiver services. This will authorize Medicaid reimbursement for eligible family caregivers of children with intellectual and developmental disabilities who provide specified in-home services. Person-centered services has always promoted a vision of community where all people lead fulfilling lives. Through our collected efforts, we can see that vision through. And again, that's from Alicia Fellows, a CEO of Person-Centered Services. And now we move on to the editorial cartoons. We have one from Adam Ziglis from the News. Cartoon that has a drawing. I'm guessing this is Benjamin Netanyahu, also known as Bibi, the Prime Minister of Israel, holding a U.S.-made military weapon and smiling at us. And behind him is a destroyed city. I'm going to guess that's in Iran. Could be Gaza, but I'm guessing Iran. And this is labeled the Bibi gun. And from Steve Kelly of the Creators Syndicate, we have a caricature of President Trump sitting behind a desk and reporters talking to him, and one of them asks, "What's the plan for dealing with Iran's new supreme leader?" And Trump says, "Like father, like son." Apparently he plans to do the same thing with the son that he did with the father. And for an editorial from Mark Gongloff, we have, "This insurance crisis is so dire that people are turning socialist." Desperate times call for desperate measures, and Americans seem increasingly desperate about the cost of home insurance. In a recent survey of U.S. homeowners, large percentages back some pretty unrealistic solutions to the problem of our soaring insurance costs. Many involve socializing the industry in ways that would keep capitalists awake at night if the methods were politically viable. But as the status quo involves passing on catastrophic losses directly to consumers without recourse, capitalists shouldn't sleep easy until they start offering better ideas. According to a survey of 1,001 U.S. homeowners released last month by the comparison shopping site Insurify, 45% want banks to make home insurance optional for those with mortgages. Meanwhile, 48% of homeowners want annual premium increases kept, and about a quarter would be fine with the government just nationalizing all insurance and outlawing private companies Soviet style. Notably, the percentages favoring all of these solutions are more or less consistent regardless of political leanings. Instead of Republicans and Democrat, the survey breaks homeowners down by conservative and liberal. Let's break these down. First, banks are simply not going to make home insurance optional, full stop. Unlike the current U.S. government, banks acknowledge climate change. They've seen the data showing the surge in billion-dollar weather disasters over the past 20 years, partly a result of the planet getting hotter. Now more than ever, they have no interest in gambling that their massive investment in your house will be wiped out overnight. There's also no chance that any conceivable Congress would pass laws forcing banks to do so. Eliminating private insurance companies is another idea that will probably have to wait for the hazy political future, perhaps once we've achieved fully automated luxury communism. Capping premium increases might be somewhat more politically feasible, but insurance companies wouldn't let that happen without an intense fight, and they've got a lot of our money to spend on lobbying. Limiting annual increases in California might have helped keep costs low for some, but also encouraged insurers to abandon the state as wildfire losses rose, pushing hundreds of thousands of homeowners into the state-backed insurer of last resort, the FAIR Plan. That's FAIR. Its loss exposure has more than tripled in 4 years, endangering its financial health. It's far from alone. There's one solution that, while a political non-starter now, might only need conditions to worsen a bit to get a better reception, setting up a government-run provider to compete with private insurance. About a third of U.S. homeowners support this, including 32% of self-described conservative ones. In fact, such an insurer already exists, the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP. For more than 5 decades, it's been the primary provider of flood insurance for American homeowners. You can just about envision a world in which Congress expands the NFIP to include coverage for wind, wildfire, severe storms, all of which have become more damaging in recent years. But in the world we inhabit, the NFIP is too underfunded and underutilized to even handle flood insurance properly. It owes the Treasury Department $22.5 billion for loss-covered loans and is expected to add an additional $27 billion in debt through 2045, according to the Peter G. Peterson Foundation. Meanwhile, though 99% of U.S. countries have flooded the past 30 years, only 4% of Americans have flood insurance, according to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which operates the NFIP, that's FEMA. The agency's flood maps, which determine which homes need flood coverage, are dangerously out of date and don't reflect a future in which a hotter atmosphere means storm dumps much more rain. After a 69% surge in premiums in the last 6 years, according to Intercontinental Exchange, combined with retreating insurance and rising costs, the number of uninsured and underinsured homes is rising. About 14% of U.S. households have no insurance at all, according to LendingTree. The highest rates of uninsurance are in disaster-prone states such as Florida, Louisiana, and Texas. Meanwhile, millions of homeowners don't have enough insurance to cover disaster losses, threatening to blow a $2.7 trillion hole in home valuations by one measure. Hard choices are ahead. At some point, we must stop subsidizing wealthy people's building in risky areas, as my colleague Jonathan Levin has suggested. We may need to require insurers to cover all risks and all homeowners or leave the market, as California Western School of Law professor Kenneth Klein has suggested. We may need to create national risk pools that completely and possibly replace private insurers. These may sound increasingly like socializing the solution, but there's probably only so much socializing of the losses the public can take. More than half the homeowners on the insurer side, Insurify survey said they generally distrust the insurance industry, to which they assign the biggest blame for rising premiums. We could make this problem more manageable for everybody by helping homeowners and communities bolster themselves against disasters, limiting future losses. And we could hasten the transition away from fossil fuels that are heating the planet. Unfortunately, the Trump administration is aggressively thwarting both solutions. American homeowners are like the meme of the unhappy guy with the stick poking at a dead fish and telling it, "Come on, do something." The longer we take to seriously address this problem, the fewer people will enjoy what's getting done. And from Clarence Page, ICE Barbie, quote unquote, is gone, but will immigration policy improve now? The worst of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem's many terrible moments in last week's congressional hearings on immigration control probably came when she admitted to being unfamiliar with the shockingly appalling case of Marimar Martinez. She is the Chicago woman who managed to survive being shot 5 times by Border Patrol agents in October, leaving her with nerve damage in her right hand, and yet, as Noem, dubbed Ice Barbie by some of her love of posturing in front of media cameras, was pushed by Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Connecticut Democrat, to acknowledge that the shooting was wrong during a heated Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on March 3rd, ignorance was her defense. Sir, I don't know what that situation of the case, Noam replied. I'll look into it to ensure all procedures were followed properly. How likely is it that Noam had not looked into the case surrounding Martinez's shooting on October 4th, especially in light of the embarrassing details that came to light as the U.S. Justice Department attempted to prosecute the victim? Some of those details were in evidence in the Senate hearing room, including posters bearing the text messages exchanged by Martinez's shooter, Border Patrol Charles Exum, bragging, "I fired 5 rounds and she has 7 holes. Put that in your book, boys." Got that? Boys? Quote unquote. Sounds like the government's immigration enforcers have been going after anyone who looks as though they might, just might, be an undocumented newcomer, whether they happen to be here illegally or not. And if the boss ain't going to check your work, well, in her 13 months leading DHS, Noam managed to cut quite a media figure. In May, just months into the job, she visited an infamous prison in El Salvador where her department had deported Venezuelan immigrants. Posing with flowing locks and perfect makeup in front of caged gang members clad only in their underwear, Noam sent a message that would be hard to decode as anything other than a taste for authoritarian kink. Homeland Security agents under her authority would go on to conduct brutally and legally dubious roundups of immigrants and Americans who look like them in a succession of U.S. cities. They would shoot and kill at least 4 U.S. citizens, including 2 in Minnesota, 1 in California, and 1 in Texas. Others, like Martinez, would be lucky to survive their wounds. Noam's minions would defy and frustrate federal judges seeking basic information from DHS about the department's compliance with court orders. Noam faithfully parroted the administration's talking points, continually characterizing immigrants as dangerous and protesters as terrorists, and President Trump stood by her. Yet their relationship came crashing down March 5th when Trump unceremoniously fired her, or rather, demoted her, to U.S. Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas. Noam had been caught in a lie, testifying about $220 million of taxpayer money she spent on TV advertising. Before the Senate Judicial Committee, she claimed the contract for the ads had been submitted for competitive bids, but the next day in front of the House, she admitted there was a no-bid arrangement. Worse, she claimed that Trump had blessed the affair. Bye-bye, Madam Secretary. Lying, corruption, illegal deportation, even taking innocent life seemingly are no bar to a seat in Trump's cabinet. But implicate him in your shenanigans and you're likely to end up as dead as fried chicken, as the colorful Republican John Kennedy of Louisiana put it. In other words, Noam's career at Homeland Security was cooked, and happiness over her imminent departure did not seem to be limited only to one party, although the usual suspect expressed loudest delight. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson noted that Kristi Noam's tenure will be remembered by her brazen corruption, reckless exploitation of vulnerable families to advance far-right agenda, and willingness to put the president's interests over that of the American people. I agree. We need good border security, not an excuse to impose police state. I hope Trump's nominee to be her replacement, Republican Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma, will do a better job if he gets confirmed, but first, leaders from both parties need to talk seriously about what is needed to protect our borders without endangering our rights and freedoms to make this country so attractive in the first place. You're listening to a reading of the Buffalo News at your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and it is now 33 minutes past the hour. And we have an article from My View from Lois Vitiver of Tonawanda, who is happy she got through the past 10 years without too many mishaps. And she writes, "Decade delivered, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Birthdays with a 0 at the end are always special. I recently celebrated one at the high end of the spectrum. Unexpectedly, a friend asked me to write an essay highlighting the past 10 years of my life. Along the way, I've discovered that it's not easy conjuring up the good, the bad, and the ugly from the years 2016 to 2026. But I was up for the challenge, and here it is. I begin by introducing some family history. We are a film-loving family, and if we're not home watching Netflix, we're flocking to one of our favorite movie houses, the Dipson Amherst Theater or the Screening Room. The Screening Room just closes Boulevard Mall location, but we hope we'll open one soon in a new spot. It's been a family tradition we enjoy. It's a wonderful life at the Sitting Room every Christmas. Lately, I've been intrigued by TV movies featuring the Neil Diamond's music. We splurged on renting Song Sung Blue, which was a winner, especially the catchy song Sweet Caroline. I recently complained to my son that it haunts me. It's in my brain day and night. It's a good thing, he replied, and I agree. Music seems to soothe the vitiver souls. Vacation spots also soothe, although there can be unfortunate mishaps. During the summers, we visit Dunkirk Camp for its fun annual picnic and the Chautauqua Institute for Sunday morning worship and ice cream. On one of those forays, I tripped on the edge of a concrete pad in such a way that I could tell going down it wasn't going to be good. It was ugly, actually, with me sprawled on the ground in every which way. I lay there yelling, "Help, I've fallen and I can't get up." Just like the life alert lady on that TV commercial. Help came quickly and I discovered that getting up was a joy compared with going down. That's life, right? The ups are much better than the downs. The goods much more abundant than the bads. What else happened between those years? Ah, yes, in August of 2020, I self-published a book comprised of short essays that had appeared in the news over 33 years. My family was more glad for me, and we advertised it far and wide. Unfortunately, we were in the midst of a pandemic and couldn't invite anyone over, so no book party. That was terrible and made me sad. But hey, one morning I was a writer. When the books arrived at noon, an author. Not bad at all. In fact, all good. Then something really bad happened. In 2025, I passed out on a living room couch. Due to an unknown heart issue, I needed a pacemaker. In the hospital, I was the one who was ugly, letting everyone know that I needed to be home. But I'm healthy now and consider this thing in my chest as my best friend. Those seconds of losing consciousness turned out to be a good omen, alerting all of us to my condition. This last year was epic. Our son began singing out in public venues, guitar in hand, and loving every minute of it. Our daughter earned her master's degree, and at the same time, our granddaughter graduated from college. Who could ask for more? Actually, I could, and I do. I ask for more and more days to watch life turn the bad and ugly into the good and the great. 10 years from now, I want to be able to share yet another one of those celebratory essays. And now we move on to Buffalo next. Gas prices are rising. Will drivers go electric? This is from Alexa St. John and Tammy Weber of the Associated Press. When Kevin Kittles bought an electric 2026 Chevrolet Blazer last year, he wasn't thinking about the cost of gas. He just thought EVs were better and wanted to be a part of the future. Now that Iran war is spiking prices at the pump, the Detroit man is happy he's no longer filling up his 11-year-old gas-powered SUV. Electricity can go up, but it won't go up nearly as much as gas will, and it won't go up nearly as fast either, said Kittles, 55, an assistant professor of global supply chain management at Wayne State University. Experts say prolonged high gas prices may drive some EV interest in sales, especially if drivers assume their electricity prices won't be affected by the crisis. But many factors influence consumer EV prices and electricity rates. Drivers of gas-powered vehicles are much more vulnerable to fluctuating prices that result from global conflict than those who charge their cars. The national average for a gallon of regular gas this week was $3.60, up from $2.94 a month ago, according to AAA. Meanwhile, residential electricity prices are regulated and much less volatile than gasoline prices, said University of California Davis economics professor Eric Muehlberger. As a result, EV owners are largely unaffected by oil price shocks, but experts say electricity prices have been increasing nationally for a variety of reasons, including surging power demand from new data centers. This is an inflationary event, Holt Edwards, principal in Bracewell's Policy Resolution Group, said of the war. Is this the driver of electricity prices? I think probably not, but it's certainly a contributing factor. To what extent oil and gas conflicts could translate to electricity sector is yet to be seen. When it comes to the electricity, an EV owner is tapping, much of the cost depends on which source of electricity are in a local grid's power mix, experts say. Because regulators set residential electricity prices annually, more houses are sheltered from month-to-month changes in natural gas costs. Though experts say higher natural gas can increase the cost of generating electricity, natural gas prices haven't risen as quickly or as much as oil prices have recently. Those are just two of the many energy sources, including coal, nuclear, and renewables, that power the electrical grid. The energy component varies depending on the energy you're using and the price of the energy that you're using to generate electricity, said Pier Paolo Cazzola, an energy expert at Columbia University's Center on Global Energy Policy. What happens is that in the U.S., the variation of the price and energy component is smaller than it is elsewhere. Several experts say high gasoline prices are a strong driver of EV sales, especially if high prices persist. Drivers also consider more gasoline-efficient hybrid vehicles during these times. Car shopping resource Edmunds analyzed consumer shopping data for the week starting March 2nd after the Iran war had begun. They found that interest in hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and battery EVs accounted for 22.4% of all vehicles research activity on their site that week, up from 20.7 the previous week. Analysts also looked back at the last major nationwide fuel price surges in 2022, and they saw the consideration of electrified vehicles considerably rose sharply after then, too. And gas is just a start. What else the war may cost you? This is from Elizabeth Buchwald of CNN. Ever since the U.S. and Israel struck Iran, the jump in oil and gas prices has become a major focus for markets and consumers alike, but that's only the top of a long list of goods that stand to get more expensive. With oil prices shooting up, the cost of transport physical goods around the world has steadily increased and is poised to continue going up the longer the war continues. And because many businesses are already absorbing most of the costs of tariffs enacted by the administration over the last year, they have little wiggle room to assume higher transportation costs, said Brian Bethune, an economics professor at Boston College. If we see the persistence of these higher oil prices for a period of time, then you're going to see a persistent cost shock, he said. Shipping rates are largely determined by diesel prices. For example, a fuel surcharge of 21.5% kicks in for FedEx ground and home deliveries when diesel prices hit and at least $3.55 a gallon. Diesel now costs $4.86 a gallon, nearly $1 more than a week ago, according to data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. This means a 24.75% fuel surcharge will kick in for the weeks ahead. A similar structure exists across all major freight modes, air, rail, and ocean, based on what fuel is used and the price. Grocery stores are just the first places consumers will see the effects of higher fuel prices, specifically the produce, meat, and dairy aisles, said Deborah Weinwig, CEO and founder of Coresight Research, a supply chain and retail research and advisory group. The less stable shelf an item is, the less companies can stockpile it, and the more vulnerable it is to price increases. Outside of grocery stores, higher prices will take much longer to appear, Weinswig said. President Trump's tariffs over the past year spurred businesses to build inventory before the new levies kicked in, meaning they have ample supplies on hand. Businesses will likely explore other ways to deal with higher fuel costs. When the war between Russia and Ukraine broke out in 2022, oil prices similarly soared and compounded already high inflation. Back then, many businesses chose to shrink product sizes while keeping the price the same, a practice known as shrinkflation, in which effectively prices increased. But with consumers already starting to cut back on spending, businesses may have a harder time getting such a disguised change past consumers. This may lead them to resort to more dire action to cut back on costs, laying off workers. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Golombek, John T., known as Jim, 91 years of age, from West Seneca, New York. Carncross Robert passed away on March 11th of 2026. And then Barris Lorraine A. Niezakulski at age 91 of Lancaster, New York. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. And now we'll move on to a little bit of entertainment from Georgia Nichols, the Royal Stars. Happy birthday for Friday, March 13th of 2026. Today is Friday the 13th. I wonder what kind of a harbinger that is. You're courageous, enthusiastic, and fascinated by ideas and ideals. You have strong curiosity about people and events. This year, you will reap the benefits of all your hard work. The stars show what kind of a day you'll have. 5 being dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, and 1 difficult. And most people today are 4 stars, which is positive, with a couple of average 3. Aries is 4 stars. You should know that you make a great impression on others today, which means you can ask for whatever you want. Tonight, you're admired. Taurus, also 4 stars. This is a great day to make travel plans, or, in fact, to travel if you can. You will also enjoy studying and learning new things. Tonight, do something different. Gemini, 4 stars. Check out banking matters and anything to do with shared property, financial negotiations, and discussing the responsibilities for someone or something because you are in the driver's seat. Tonight, check your finances. Cancer, 3 stars. Even though Venus is now at the top of your chart, creating favorable circumstances in your business and professional life. Tonight, cooperate. Leo, 3 stars. Today, you want it all. If you can travel for pleasure and explore new and beautiful places, this will delight you. Tonight, work. Virgo, 4 stars. Gifts, goodies, and favors from others can come your way today. Meanwhile, romance will be passionate and effective. Tonight, enjoy the company of others. Libra, 4 stars. You can get a lot done today because you have the energy and drive. Furthermore, Mercury retrograde will help you finish old business and wrap up loose details. Tonight, cocoon at home. Scorpio, 4 stars. This is a great day for the arts, show business, and anything to do with sports and entertainment world. Tonight, energetic discussions. Sagittarius, 4 stars. You might want to buy something today, or invest in real estate, or do something to shore up and secure your home and family situation. Tonight, check your belongings. Capricorn, 4 stars. Today the moon is in your sign, dancing beautifully with the sun in such a way that it will boost all your communications with others, making them positive, enthusiastic, and proactive. Tonight, you're in charge. Aquarius, 3 stars. Quiet research done behind the scenes might yield financial information that can benefit you or boost your earnings. Tonight, enjoy privacy. And finally, Pisces, 4 stars. Enjoy the company of friends, groups, and organizations. Today, you have energy to share. Tonight, friendships are important. From the Political Notebook, from the District of Columbia, Trump shouldn't attend the World Cup, Trump says. President Trump said he did not think it would be appropriate for the Iranian soccer team to attend this year's World Cup hosted by the United States, and cited safety concerns as a reason on Thursday why the countries remain embroiled in a war. The Iran national soccer team is welcome to the World Cup, Trump wrote on a social media site, but I really don't think it is appropriate that they be there for their own life and safety. Iranian leaders said earlier this week that it's not possible for the country to participate in the World Cup. Trump's message appears to depart somewhat from the Republican president relayed Tuesday on the White House to FIFA President Gianni Infantino, who later publicly said that Trump assured him the Iranian players and coaches would be welcome. A White House official who insisted on anonymity to discuss private conversations had confirmed Trump's message to Infantino about Iran's participation. On Thursday, the White House did not immediately clarify what Trump meant by their own life and safety, such as whether he anticipated threats against them while in the United States after U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran began February 28th. Iran, one of 48 teams in the tournament, is scheduled to play in Inglewood, California against New Zealand on June 15th and Belgium on June 21st, before finishing group play in Seattle against Egypt on June 26th. The U.S. is hosting the tournament with Canada and Mexico from June 11th to July 19th. And then the House panel questions Epstein's accountant. House lawmakers are digging into Jeffrey Epstein's sprawling financial portfolio on Wednesday as a committee deposed his former accountant and tried to understand his connection to some of the world's wealthiest men. Richard Kahn, who worked closely with Epstein for years and now serves as an executor of estate, appeared on the closed-door deposition on Capitol Hill and told lawmakers that he had not personally seen evidence of Epstein's sexual abuse, but provided a fuller picture of how Epstein acquired his wealth. The wealthy financier made hundreds of millions of dollars over 2 decades, during which he struck up friendships with some of the world's most powerful men. Kahn was under the impression that Epstein made his money as a tax advisor and a financial planner, said Representative James Comer, the Republican chair of the House Oversight Committee lawmakers, argued that a fuller picture of Epstein's finances could help the public understand how for years he was able to get away with trafficking and abusing underage girls. Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring would not have been possible without Richard Kahn, who managed Epstein's money for years, authorized payments, including payments to victims and survivors, said Representative James Walkinshaw, a Democrat from Virginia, who added that Kahn told him he was unable to recall details of some of the transactions and communications that he was asked about. Kahn has said that he was unaware of Epstein's sexual abuse and had not seen any of his victims. President Trump has strongly denied any wrongdoing in his own ties to Epstein, and Comer said that Kahn had never seen any financial transactions between Epstein and Trump. Comer said that Kahn is the latest witness to testify they'd never seen Trump do anything wrong with Epstein. And today in history, on this date in 1781, the seventh planet of the solar system, Uranus, was discovered by astronomer William Herschel. In 1925, the Tennessee General Assembly approved the Butler Act, which prohibited public schools from teaching the theory of evolution. Governor Austin Peay signed the measure on March 21st, and the bill was challenged in court later that year in the famous Scopes monkey trial. Tennessee ultimately repealed the law in 1967. In 1946, U.S. private first class Sadao Minamori was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for sacrificing himself to save fellow soldiers from a grenade explosion in Saravezza, Italy. He was the only Japanese-American service member so recognized in the immediate aftermath of World War II. In 1954, the pivotal Battle of Dien Bien Phu began during the First Indochina War as Viet Minh forces attacked French troops, who were defeated nearly 2 months later. In 2013, Jorge Bergoglio of Argentina was elected Pope, choosing the papal name Francis. He was the first pontiff from the Americas and the first one outside of Europe since Pope Gregory III's death in the year 741. Pope Francis died on April 21st of 2025. In 2020, President Donald Trump declared a national emergency in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And Uniland buys land for warehouse. The Hamburg, New York Land Development Corporation, an affiliate of Hamburg IDA, approved the $1 million sale of 26.3 acres of Lakeshore Road to BLVDI LLC, an affiliate of Uniland Development Company, which appears to be planning to put up an industrial warehouse at the site similar to what it has in Lackawanna. We're currently in the due diligence phase, which enables us to further evaluate the site and determine next steps, said Uniland spokesman Ryan Weiss. Should we decide to proceed with the purchase, we will share additional information at that time. The land had been under contract to Andrew Zanides of Riverdale, New Jersey, who also bought and is developing the nearby Gateway building, but that land deal didn't advance, so the LDC opted not to renew the contract with him, said Sean Doyle, executive director of the Hamburg IDA and LDC. The LDC also agreed to purchase the building at 6122 South Park Avenue. The houses it and the IDA, as well as Southtown's Regional Chamber of Commerce, for $250,000 from the town. Doyle says he hopes to add other community services as well. And in business briefly, long-term mortgage rates rise again, reversing the recent drop. The average long-term U.S. mortgage rate rose again this week, reflecting ongoing bond market jitters over war with Iran. The benchmark 30-year fixed-rate mortgage rate ticked up to 6.11% from 6% last week, mortgage buyers Freddie Mac said Thursday. The average rate is now back to where it was 5 weeks ago. Just 2 weeks ago, it touched its lowest level in 3.5 years. Meanwhile, borrowing costs on 15-year fixed-rate mortgages popular with homeowners refinancing their home loans also rose this week. That average rate rose 5.5% from 5.43% last week. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for today, Friday the 13th, March 13th of 2026 on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. We'll return for more readings after this short break, and your reader for the first hour is J.J. Patek. Thank you for listening. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, September 1st of 2023.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your reader is Dasha. In city and region, we begin with Seneca Babcock shuts down services after nonprofit loss by Deirdre Williams and Sandra Tan. The Seneca Babcock Community Association is shutting down most of its services beginning Friday after its executive director, who's resigning, admitted that the organization failed to submit any financial documents for the past 9 years to the Internal Revenue Service. The IRS revoked the organization's nonprofit tax-exempt status because of the lapse in compliance. On Thursday, Executive Director Brian Pilarski was making rounds to all the facilities under the Seneca Babcock umbrella to, quote, personally apologize and inform all staff and clients, end quote. He told the Buffalo News, quote, we unfortunately are stopping the majority of our services starting Friday, said Pilarski, who is also a Democratic member of the Cheektowaga Town Board. We will continue to our child care for one more week to assist families in finding new child care center. We will also continue transportation for the seniors because the county said they will still support and fund that. We will also continue pantry at both Babcock and Schiller, as they are operated by volunteers. As for our youth services, we don't have the funding to continue it. Our senior citizen socialization and lunch program, workforce development, and youth after-school and athletic programs will end Friday. Deputy Mayor Maria White said city officials had an initial conversation Wednesday with county officials about possible strategies to keep some of the programs going at Seneca Babcock. The Delavan Grider Community Center may be able to continue providing nutrition services for residents who typically attend Schiller Park Community Services, she said. Also, the Tosh Collins Community Center on Cazenovia Street in South Buffalo may be able to provide services to residents who typically go to the Seneca Babcock Community Center on Seneca Street in the city's Lovejoy district. White said she will attend another meeting on Friday to discuss what, if anything, can be done to shift some services to nearby community organizations. The Seneca Babcock organization provides services for children, seniors, and families, including a senior luncheon and dinner for youth ages 6 to 18 daily. Other activities at the center include a youth tutoring program, GED classes, a ceramics program for seniors, adults, and teens, a youth recreation program, a youth summer program, a senior citizen recreation program, a senior travel program, Girl Scouts, brownies, cheerleading, sports leagues, youth dance, cooking classes, and science clubs. It also offers pantry and a food pantry and serves as a cooling center for people during times of excessive heat. In addition, it provides a weight room and computer room on site. The buildings it operates include the Seneca Babcock Community Center, Hennepin Community Center, George K. Arthur Community Center, Schiller Park Community Services, and Arlene Michelot Community Center. The last time the Seneca Babcock Community Association filed an IRS Form 990 was in 2020 for the 2017 tax year, according to the IRS. Even then, however, the Bonadio and Company auditing firm refused to render an opinion regarding the association's 990 statement because, the firm said, detailed accounting records have not been maintained and supporting data was not available to complete the audit, with the exception of cash. According to the Erie County Comptroller's Office, the county has given $3.36 million to the Seneca Babcock Community Association since 2017. City spokesman Ian Ott said Buffalo has given the association $2.05 million since 2017. Erie County legislators said they were shocked to hear Thursday that the organizations supported by the Seneca Babcock Community Association will soon be shutting down. Some also said they couldn't understand how the organization could suddenly be out of monies, seemingly within just a day of the association's fiscal issues receiving widespread attention. Legislator Frank Todaro, Republican of Lancaster, and Republican County Caucus Chief of Staff Brian Fiume expressed concern about what happened to the millions of dollars the association was already given. Todaro sent a letter to the state attorney general and state comptroller Wednesday, asking for a more complete investigation. "What's going on there?" Todaro said. "We're hearing that it's shutting down next Friday. We have a resignation that just occurred within 24 hours of my letter, so I think the plot is thickening here." "Where's the money?" Fiume said. "They're getting millions of dollars." Legislator Lawrence Dupre, Democrat of Buffalo, whose district includes the Seneca Babcock Community Association, said he was stunned by the disclosures because it was his understanding that the county is stepping up to ensure that services can continue to be provided. "There's daycares, there's senior nutrition programs that the community depends on," he said. "We need to keep that going. So now I'm hearing new reports it may be closing. So for me, I need to get to the bottom of that, because what's most important to me is that the community knows we're still here, we're still helping, and there isn't all this confusion." County Attorney Jeremy Toth said he, too, is scrambling to learn more about all the contracts the Seneca Babcock Community Association has with the county, what the county's current legal standing is with the agencies, whether all the money the county earmarked has already been provided, whether any money remains unspent, and the broader consequences of the association having its nonprofit standing revoked. Another article in City and Region is entitled "Ryan Asks State to Let City Take the Lead on Scajaquada Project" by Justin Sondel. The City of Buffalo is seeking to take charge of the Scajaquada Expressway project and have funding for the long-stalled overhaul restored. Mayor Sean Ryan sent a letter to State Department of Transportation Commissioner Marie-Therese Dominguez requesting that the city be granted lead agency status on the project and that $56 million for the project be included in the DOT's Transportation Improvement Plan, which is the list of department projects set for the next construction season issued in the fall. Ryan said he wants the city to have lead agency status so that it can push to get the project done, noting that Syracuse and Rochester are the lead agencies on transformative state highway projects in those cities. While lead agency status has a technical meaning under the state's environment laws, Ryan said he wants the city to lead the project more generally. Quote, "Whether it's the 198 to the 33, the Skyway, the city has consistently hidden from responsibility," Ryan said. "It's been a real failure of leadership. And we all know that none of those projects have really gotten going because of that failure of leadership. So, in the past, the city hasn't wanted a seat at the table. I want a seat at the front of the table." A DOT spokesperson said Thursday morning the agency was still preparing a response to the news's request for comment. Advocates have pushed for a redesign of the expressway that bifurcates Delaware Park for decades. In 2020, the DOT tasks the Greater Buffalo Niagara Transportation Council with developing a plan called the Region Central Plan that had community support, and it was presented to the public in 2023. The plan, which includes traffic calming and pedestrian-friendly design elements, also offers benefits for Scajaquada Creek and Delaware Park, removes the tangle of elevated on- and off-ramps at Niagara Street, restores Black Rock Harbor, and returns a parkway along Humboldt Parkway from Agassiz Circle to East Delavan Avenue. Governor Kathy Hochul instructed the DOT to analyze the plan in 2024 and perform environmental and traffic studies to move the project forward. But those studies have yet to be carried out. Ryan, who criticized the DOT for its decision to reclassify the project to a non-active status last year, said revamping the state highway would have many positive impacts in the area. Quote, "The project has the ability to relink Buffalo to its parks, make Black Rock whole again, and really make it so it's not an obstacle that you have to get around to get anywhere from Hamlin Park to Black Rock." End quote. Katie Stevenson, the executive director of the Buffalo Olmsted Parks Conservancy, said she's glad to see the city attempting to take the lead on the project. "Within the city of Buffalo, there has been a vacuum of leadership historically around transportation projects in the city, and so we at the Conservancy are very excited that the city is stepping forward and taking on this leadership effort," Stevenson said. Her organization has been a member of the Sejaquita Corridor Coalition, a group of organizations pushing to move the project forward, and that the Conservancy supports reconnecting the two sides of Delaware Park currently separated by the expressway. "Part of our mission is to advocate for the preservation and restoration of the historic landscape, and so the 198 project has been one that we've been involved in for a long time," Stevenson said. "We support that effort because we want to reconnect Delaware Park in a way that aligns with Olmsted's original vision and honors his legacy." After years of delays and last year's setback, the city needs to push to get the project headed in the right direction again, Ryan said. Quote, "That will allow us to advance the Region Central plan through its new environmental review that we have to do, and then start on the design process," Ryan said. Additionally, to the Buffalo News from CNN, "Gas is just a start. What else the war may cost you," by Elizabeth Buchwald. Ever since the U.S. and Israel struck Iran, the jump in oil and gas prices has become a major focus for markets and consumers alike. But that's only the top of a long list of goods that stand to get more expensive. With oil prices shooting up, the cost to transport physical goods around the world has already increased and is poised to continue going up the longer the war continues. And because many businesses are already absorbing most of the cost of tariffs enacted by the administration over the last year, they have little wiggle room for them to assume higher transportation costs, said Brian Bethune, an economics professor at Boston College. "If we see the persistence of these higher oil prices for a period of time, then you're going to see a persistent cost shock," he said. Shipping rates are largely determined by diesel prices. For instance, a fuel surcharge of 21.5% kicks in for the FedEx ground and home deliveries when diesel prices hit at least $3.55 a gallon. Diesel now costs $4.86 a gallon, nearly $1 more than a week ago, according to data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. This means a 24.75% fuel surcharge will kick in for the week ahead. A similar structure exists across all major freight modes, air, rail, and ocean, based on what fuel is used and the price. Grocery stores are one of the first places consumers will see the effects of higher fuel prices, specifically the produce, meat, and dairy aisles, said Deborah Weinswig, CEO and founder of Coresight Research, a supply chain and retail research and advisory group. The less shelf-stable an item is, the less companies can stockpile it, and the more vulnerable it is to price increases. Outside of grocery stores, higher prices will take much longer to appear, Weinswig added. President Trump's tariffs over the past year spurred businesses to build inventory before the new levies kicked in, meaning they have ample supplies on hand. Businesses will likely explore other ways to deal with the higher fuel costs. When the war between Russia and Ukraine broke out in 2022, oil prices similarly soared and compounded already high inflation. Back then, many businesses chose to shrink product sizes while keeping the same price, a practice known as shrinkflation, which is effectively a price increase. But with consumers already starting to cut back on spending, businesses may have a harder time getting such disguised changes past consumers. That may lead them to resort to a more dire action to cut back on costs, laying off workers. And again, locally, Uniland buys land for a warehouse. The Hamburg, New York Land Development Corp., an affiliate of the Hamburg IDA, approved the $1 million sale of 26.3 acres on Lakeshore Road to BLVDI LLC, an affiliate of Uniland Development Company, which appears to be planning to put up an industrial warehouse at the site, similar to what it has done in Lackawanna. We are currently in the due diligence phase, which enables us to further evaluate the site and determine next steps, said Uniland spokesman Ryan Weiss. Should we decide to proceed with the purchase, we will share additional information at that time. The land had been under contract to Andrew Tsanides of Riverdale, New Jersey, who also bought and is redeveloping the nearby Gateway building. But that land deal didn't advance, so the LDC opted not to renew the contract with him, said Sean Doyle, executive director of the Hamburg IDA and LDC. The LDC also agreed to purchase the building at 6122 South Park Avenue that houses it and the IDA, as well as the Southtowns Regional Chamber of Commerce, for $250,000 from the town. Doyle said he hopes to add other community services as well. You are listening to reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Friday, the 13th of March. We read Buffalo News live on weekdays. Apparently we don't have, and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. The time is 15 and a half minutes after the hour. An invasive bug threatens the area's hemlock forests, by Mackenzie Schumann. In a wintertime landscape characterized by mostly shades of white and gray, the evergreen hemlock trees dotting the hills of western New York tend to stand out. And on a rare cloudless day on March 4th, 3 scientists at the Western New York Land Conservancy were paying close attention to the conspicuous trees on a nature preserve in East Aurora. Pulling a needle-filled branch down to eye level, Brittany Herndon, a restoration ecologist with the Land Trust, spotted what the group had been searching for, a microscopic beast threatening to devastate New York's hemlocks. The hemlock woolly attagid's distinctive white cotton-like outer armor housing the pest inside dotted the end of the branch, like springtime snow, stubbornly sticking around. Inside, a hemlock woolly attagid was feeding on the tree's sap. It was a disappointing sight. The pest, this close to the ground, likely meant the entire tree was infested, and very possibly most of the surrounding hemlocks were as well. The hemlock woolly attagid can kill hemlock trees in less than 10 years. The invasive species originating from Asia has been spotted in 40 of New York's counties, slowly spreading throughout the state, catching rides on birds or blowing over from neighboring groves. In western New York, the pest is beginning to take hold. Most of our preserves are on the front edge of this infestation where they're not dying yet, said Josh Ballesteri, Stewardship Director at Western New York Land Conservancy, which holds more than 8,000 acres of land for nature preserves. It takes a while for this to kill the tree, fortunately, so we're working as quickly as we can to save what we can. The worst of the infestation in New York is in the lower Hudson Valley and Catskills regions, according to Jason Denham, a forester with the State Department of Environmental Conservation. There, hemlock trees are dying, turning a once green landscape to splotchy brown. The hemlock woolly attagid has also spread rapidly through the Finger Lakes and has been spotted in the Adirondacks, spelling fear for the dense groves of hemlock trees. It's definitely extremely concerning, Denham said. If we had to lose a tree species, that's not the one we want to lose by far. Hemlock trees are keystone species, a title that signals their importance to ecosystems. They're shade tolerant, meaning they'll grow where other trees cannot. Hemlocks also grow in groups called groves, providing an oasis of shade and protection year-round that wildlife gravitate toward. Hemlock trees can take 200 to 300 years to mature and have a potential lifespan of 800 to 1,000 years. Their roots spread outward, filtering stormwater and anchoring the sides of stream beds or mountains. At the Owens Falls Sanctuary in East Aurora, where the Western New York Land Conservancy staff were surveying for the hemlock woolly attagid, the hemlock trees appeared to be quite literally holding up the side of a ravine that plunged down to the waterfall below. Just below the ravine's edge, tiny white dots could be seen, spotting the top branches of hemlock trees, a sure sign of a hemlock woolly adelgid infestation taking root. Hey, it's crunch time. We've got to jump on this, Ballesteri said, and we're just praying for this biocontrol to work. There are two main methods to help control the spread of hemlock woolly adelgid: chemical treatments or biological control. The first, chemical treatment, uses insecticides sprayed on the hemlock tree trunks to effectively poison the pests. It's harmless to the trees, but also seen as only a temporary control measure because the effects wear off in 5 to 7 years. The second, biological control, involves sending out thousands of tiny beetles or flies to eat the hemlock woolly adelgids. There are two main predators for the hemlock woolly adelgid: the Laricobius beetle and the silver fly. Both are native to the Pacific Northwest, and scientists have teamed up with the DEC, land trust organizations, and regional invasive species management groups to release the insects in targeted areas of the state to fight the hemlock woolly adelgid infestation. Mark Whitmore, director of the New York State Hemlock Initiative at Cornell University, said he's starting to see the beetles established in New York. The beetles were first released in 2008, and the silver flies first released around 2017, he said. Much of Whitmore's work now involves gathering beetles and flies from the West Coast, shipping them to the East Coast, releasing them, and then trying to count how many stick around. It's a race against time. While the hemlock trees continue to die from the pests, the beetles and silver flies aren't establishing quickly enough yet. Whitmore said that's why it's important the chemical treatments are used in the meantime. You're not going to save trees waiting for the biological control, Whitmore said. The predators are out there, but they're not going to save trees right now. In western New York, the chemical treatments have been used as a stopgap measure while the biological controls continue to be developed. The beetles and silver flies have been released locally but haven't yet grown to populations large enough to remove the threat of hemlock woolly adelgids. The region is still on the precipice of the infestation. Hemlock trees don't appear to be dying quite yet, but there are signs trouble's on the way. I notice that if I go somewhere that isn't infested, like College Lodge Forest, and then go somewhere that is heavily infested, I can see a notable color difference in the trees, said Kevin Janicki, conservative easement steward with the Western New York Land Conservancy. There are a few things residents can do to help scientists document and slow the spread of hemlock woolly adelgid. When hiking in areas with hemlock trees, experts advise people to watch out for the characteristic little white dots on the hemlock tree branches. If spotted, take a picture and upload it to imapinvasives.org, an online system that sends the photos to scientists such as Whitmore to confirm whether hemlock woolly adelgid has been found. You can also email the photos to foresthealth@dec.ny.gov, and Denham will likely review it to check whether you've correctly identified the pest. When hiking in areas with hemlock trees during the spring and summertime, be careful to not venture to another separate property that also has hemlock trees. After the winter, hemlock woolly adelgids come out of the protective white armor, and that's when they may spread. Washing clothes and pets after hiking through areas with hemlock trees ensures the hemlock woolly adelgid hasn't hitched a ride into a new, non-infested forest. In local sports news, wide receiver is super excited to join the Bills by Catherine Fitzgerald. As DJ Moore spoke, the bookshelf behind him told stories of his past. I have my late grandparents and my late first dog, and right there we have my MVP from week 5, 2023 that's going on. He said Thursday. Then the rest is books and memories for me and my family. There was a cheese grater on a chain, presumably from his time with the Chicago Bears, a horse head statue, and a Super Dad trophy. Soon the bookshelf will have mementos of Western New York, too. Moore, 28, is coming to Buffalo. The trade with the Bears for the wide receiver became official on Wednesday, and Moore was introduced to the media over a video news conference on Thursday. It was the second time he's been traded, the first being by the Carolina Panthers, who drafted him to Chicago. After a dip in production this past season, he was aware it could happen again. I didn't take a trade off the table in my mind throughout this time, Moore said. So when it happened, I was like, okay, it's the business side of things. And then I heard it was the Bills, and I got super excited. I'm ready to roll. A few things have Moore excited. He wants to see a table jump, calling the fan base loyal. He got a taste for winning this past year, and guess what? He loved it. And he'll reunite with Joe Brady, who was his offensive coordinator in Carolina. Brady told Moore to get ready to run. With Brady in control of the Panthers' offense in 2020 and part of 2021, Moore had strong performances, but he also saw the energy that Brady intends to bring to the Bills. Brady would just hold us, everybody in the offensive unit, to a high standard, and going out there every day and just getting better 1%, Moore said. What are the little things or the most needed things that we needed to focus on? He always harped on them, and he never took his foot off the gas. And now, on top of working with Brady again, Moore will also play alongside Bills quarterback Josh Allen. Moore said he got a warm welcome from a number of Bills players reaching out to him when the news broke, and Allen was among them. Josh is ready for me to get there and get going, Moore said. Moore was excited about Allen for more than just statistical reasons. He's a field general, Moore said of Allen. You see him out there trying to conduct things, and the way he does it is successful, and I just want to be part of that. Moore feels ready to integrate himself into the Bills' wide receivers room, and he believes his experience in the league has made him a better route runner. He understands better how to speed or settle at all different levels of the field. The next step will be to build rapport with Allen, Moore said. He's comfortable with improvising when plays break down, a necessity for any Bills receiver, and that he plays hard and tough. Last year, he went into the season without any specific statistical goals, and he found the theory to work for him. He wants to carry that mindset over to this next chapter. It just clears your mind if you're not thinking about, am I getting catches? Am I getting targets? What? Moore said. It's just letting you play free. And in Sabres news, former Jets join team after sorting out visas by Rachel Lindsay. Nothing should faze Luke Schenn, an 18-year NHL veteran. He's played more games than more than 1,100 career games. He's won 2 Stanley Cups. He's crisscrossed North America to play for 12 NHL and American Hockey League teams. However, the defenseman joined the Buffalo Sabres earlier this week as part of a trade with the Winnipeg Jets, and Schenn experienced something he had never been through before, gaining in-season visa clearance from the United States government. Red tape would not have been an issue had Schenn been traded to a Canadian team, but because he, Logan Stanley, and Tanner Pearson were traded from Winnipeg to an American team, they had to go through an expedited process of obtaining a visa that allows them to work, in this place, play hockey, in the United States. In the past, for me, you sign in an American city and they handle the immigration process for the summer, and said Schenn, a defenseman from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. It usually shows up in your email and you present that at the border. But when we got traded, it was heading into the weekend, so it probably held things up a little bit. But it's all good. It's all figured itself out now. Happy to get going. Schenn and Pearson, a left wing, took part in the morning skate Thursday at KeyBank Center, their first reps with the Sabres. Stanley, a defenseman, played his first game with the Sabres on Tuesday, a 6-3 win against San Jose. Sam Carrick is from the Toronto area but did not have to obtain updated visa status because the center joined a team in a trade with the New York Rangers. Athletes from foreign countries who participate in sports in the United States at the college or professional levels have to obtain immigration documents, including specific types of visas and travel documents, and must be sponsored by an employer, a team, or a league if they are applying for P-1A visa, which is typically granted to professional athletes. The Sabres work with a legal team to assist players with visa clearance. That process comes with an added urgency when the need for clearance comes during the season rather than in the off-season. It's not uncommon for this to unfold in the NHL. Last season, Jacob Bernard-Docker didn't get visa clearance until a week after he joined the Sabres in a trade with Ottawa. You keep asking the people that are in charge, has he got a visa yet? Sabres coach Lindy Ruff said of how he handles visa clearance as a coach. You keep asking the people that are in charge. Our people try as quickly as they can to get in that place. It's really out of my pay grade, the immigration visa and the work visa stuff, but every team deals with it and handles it, and you try to get those players available as quick as you can. Stanley and Pearson arrived over the weekend in Buffalo. In fact, Pearson walked by Tampa Bay coach John Cooper's pregame media scrum, his equipment in tow, and Stanley met with reporters during the first intermission of Sunday's 8-7 win against Tampa Bay. When you sign a contract and you have the summer to figure it out, it's not a necessity right away, Pearson said. It was definitely weird being around. Couldn't skate, couldn't really do much, but I'm glad we got it figured out. Shen said he and his teammates went to the Peace Bridge border crossing Tuesday to obtain visa clearance. Then, Stanley said, they went from the border crossing office right to the rink. Like Shen, this was also the first time Stanley obtained visa clearance. He's from Kitchener, Ontario, and played his first 6 seasons in Winnipeg. They helped us figure some stuff out to try to expedite it, and the Sabres definitely went above and beyond, Shen said. They went out of their way to try and make this happen quicker. The red tape is cut and in the trash. Now comes the fun part, helping the Sabres make the playoffs for the first time since the 2010-11 season. It's not unusual to be part of a multiplayer trade in which you and a teammate join another team. However, the trio of former Jets already have some level of familiarity in a new locker room. I didn't know many of the guys coming in, so to have some familiar faces around is going to be nice, Stanley said of Shen and Pearson. It'll be nice to kind of get to know the group with those guys, and I think we'll be good additions. Stanley and Shen skated together on a defensive pair in Thursday's morning skate ahead of a 7 p.m. game against Washington. Shen is on his 4th team with Pearson. In addition to being teammates with the Jets and Sabres this season, they also played together in the 2015-16 season with Los Angeles and in 2018-19 and from 2021-23 with Vancouver. If you would have told me we'd be together and be partners for a lot of the year in Winnipeg and then told me we played together at some point in Buffalo, I don't think I would have believed them for sure, Shen said. Shen has already gotten one more unique experience with the Sabres. He's playing on the same team as the son of a former teammate. My wife said to me the other day, "You're getting old in this league," when at one point it's Shane Doan with his wife who welcomed you to the team, and the next thing you know it's Josh Doan and his girlfriend, said Shen, who was Shane Doan's teammate with the Arizona Coyotes in 2016-17. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. Continuing with Sabres news, Luukkonen answers call in and out of the crease. Which one of the Buffalo Sabres had the best view of that all-time Sunday classic Sunday night against the Tampa Bay Lightning? An easy vote here for goalie Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. On the team's alternating schedule in the crease, Luukkonen was back in the net for Thursday's game against the Washington Capitals in KeyBank Center, going for his 5th straight win and the 9th in a row for the team. But he was sheepish and had a good chuckle when asked after the morning skate to think back upon Sunday night, given a few days to reflect. "That was something for sure," Luukkonen said. "As a goalie, you don't want to let in 7 goals, but at this part of the year, it doesn't matter as long as you win. I let in 7, we scored 8. An interesting game. What matters is that we win. You make one timely save and help your team win. That's the biggest thing. The whole game, I think, was a big thing for us, moving forward. Those kinds of things kind of glue the group together for even more. You stand up for each other. You never give up mentally." Luukkonen said he felt the Sabres ultimately deserved to win the game as they broke to leads of 3-0 and 4-1 and rallied from deficits of 6-4 and 7-5. "We were the better team. It's a good learning experience when you kind of get dragged into that gray area and that muddy type of hockey," he said. "You can't lose your own game, lose the identity of hockey you want to play. That kind of happened to both teams at times. It just started to be run-and-gun hockey and hitting and fighting. It's a good learning thing for us." Luukkonen's signature moment, of course, wasn't a save at all. It was when he broke from the crease to intercept Brandon Hagel's from-behind mugging of Sabres captain Rasmus Dahlin that ultimately earned a $5,000 fine from the NHL. "I was going to the bench because I saw the referee put his hand up for the initial penalty on Hagel, but that was one of those things that there's a lot of emotions and stuff happens. There's stuff you just don't do," Luukkonen said. "You don't just jump on somebody's back and start punching, especially when you see it's your captain and it's happening right in front of you. There's no other option than just to go protect him. We've shown everybody's ready to protect their teammates, and there's stuff in the games you just don't do, and I think that was one of them." Dahlin was obviously appreciative. The captain's message to reporters after the win? "We're just standing up for each other. We're a bunch of brothers in here." Lucan in numbers took a hit with 7 goals against on just 28 shots, and it left him with a goals against average of 2.74 and save percentage of 9.05 entering Thursday's play, but his record is 15-7-2. The alternating of goalies has cut into Lucan's workload this year as he started 51 and 55 games respectively the last 2 seasons and only hit 25 this year on Thursday. Alex Lyon, 18, 8, 3, 2.65 /.914, has made 29 starts and Colton Ellis 12. But Lyon and Luukkonen have started the last 10 and rate as the Sabres' most dependable 1-2 tandem since Ryan Miller and Marty Biron 20 years ago. Luukkonen has said multiple times this season that the experience has been positive and supportive. Of course, you want to play as much as you can, but the situation right now with the rotation has obviously been working for us, Luukkonen said. You try to build up your week. You know, when you're playing games, the next time you're working with Balesy, goalie coach Mike Bales. All 3 of us have a really good relationship with him, and you have time in between the games to mentally and physically prepare yourself every time. Goaltending is a key reason the Sabres have been able to sustain winning streaks. They entered Thursday on their second streak of at least 8 wins in a row this season, something they had never done in the franchise history. It was really something that it was one of our biggest points of frustration the last couple of years, Luukkonen said. What started to happen is we've developed our confidence and repeated our games and become very consistent. We trust our game, and that's the biggest thing. In a different area today, we have Asking Eric. Well-off parents disinherit son for seemingly no reason. Dear Eric, my mother-in-law and father-in-law won 2 prizes in a raffle one Christmas. We were shown these prizes. 12 months later, we traveled 2,500 miles to visit them for Christmas again. On Christmas morning, my husband and I received these raffle prizes for Christmas presents. We don't believe that they had forgotten that they'd shown us the duffel bag and cheap towels the previous year. I could write a book regaling you with the number of times we've been subjected to passive-aggressive swipes, stories of how my husband's sister is getting a new this or that, or a bigger house, a new car, that they're earning lots of money. We stopped telling them anything years ago because my husband said it only arms them. We stopped exchanging gifts at my suggestion, and that we all just buy for the children of the family. My husband's father died the year before last, and in many ways he's now free. His mother has moved back to her home country. However, he has since discovered that his parents had disinherited him for absolutely no good reason after he suffered a heart attack. My husband's the nicest person I know, and he says this about me too. I guess my question is, why do people do this? Dear Disinherited, I'm so sorry for what you and your husband went through. It's not fair and it's unkind. One of the hard things about being human is that while we can sometimes put reasons to other humans' unkind or cruel behavior, their own trauma, envy, illness, etc., that doesn't answer the underlying question. Why is this happening to me? It can be maddening to try to make sense of other people's behavior by figuring out what we're doing to cause it, and that's often a very dangerous path to go down. If we've done a self-inventory and if we've reached out and said, did I do something to harm you? And we still don't have an answer, it's healthy to step away and say, this is not something that's actually about me. That sounds like what you and your husband did. It was the right thing. His parents failed to effectively communicate what they wanted or expected, so how could he be held responsible for fulfilling those wants? Some parts of this hurt may never fully go away, but I'd encourage your husband to work through his grief and confusion with a counselor or a grief support group. He doesn't have to do this alone. Back into sports now with Bison's offering discount packages by Mike Harrington. With opening day just 2 weeks away, the Buffalo Bisons are specializing in package deals for fans for the 2026 season at Sahlen Field. We've always prided ourselves on being the best family and sports entertainment in Western New York, and this year we're going to prove it a little bit too, General Manager Anthony Sprague said during a presentation for reporters this week in Consumers Park at the Pub at the Park. Among several cost-saving initiatives for fans, the Bisons are introducing Family Value Nights for the 11 Thursday home games on their schedule. All tickets will be just $10, which is a discount of 50% from the team's top ticket price, and there will be a select $3 concessions items for kids, such as chicken nuggets, nachos, and ice cream, as well as discounts in the gift shop. We felt like it was a necessary thing to do with everything in the world costing more money, Sprague said. Gas is up, groceries are up, and we're going to have so many family discounted items. The Bison 75 game home schedule opens at 1:05 p.m. March 27th against the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders in what is the earliest season opener in team history for the third straight year. The weekend games on March 28th to 29th will have kids' tickets available for $10 at the ballpark box office, and the first 1,000 kids through the gates will receive a free hot dog, cotton candy, soda voucher. Other discount offerings: single game tickets come with a $5 discount if purchased in advance of the day of the game. 15 home games in March and April have been dubbed Kids Month, with tickets for youths 14 and under just $10 at the ballpark box office. A limited number of family value packs will be available for all home games, offering 4 tickets, 4 hot dogs, 4 sodas, and a gift shop discount for $99. The season starter pack offers a ticket to each of the first 15 home games for just $4 apiece, a savings of 83% off face value. And as a nod to the parent Toronto Blue Jays, the Bisons have extended at par price for Canadian fans to all games on the schedule at bisons.com/Canada, and will also accept Canadian cash for tickets at the ballpark box office. The concession lineup will now include the Polish Festival night platter of Polish sausage, pierogi, and sauerkraut at every game, and there will be big changes to the nightly pregame buffet in Pub at the Park. Each Tuesday game will feature a taco station as part of the buffet package, and Wing Wednesdays will be highlighted by a chicken wing station showcasing award-winning sauces from previous editions at the National Buffalo Wing Festival in the ballpark. This year's event is August 29th to 30th. The biggest non-Bisons event of the summer will be the Cosmic Baseball Tour games of July 3rd, 4th. The first night is already a sellout, with no Independence Eve home game on the team's schedule for the first time since the mid-90s. The Bisons brought in the Barnstormers, who will play glow-in-the-dark games to fill the ballpark. We were really pushing hard to find some kind of major event for July 3rd because everybody's been coming to the ballpark for 30-plus years on July 3rd, Sprague said. We let Cosmic know, hey, we got pretty much a guaranteed sellout here if you guys come on July 3rd, and they extended it to the 4th, too. Ballpark staple promotions include Star Wars Night, June 13th, Harry Potter Night, August 22nd, 6 Dog Days at the Park, with dogs getting a post-game walk of the bases on April 24th, a post-game drone show on July 25th, and 18 fireworks nights. The biggest will be May 15th as part of a 3-day America's 250th anniversary celebration. In more local news, cops share body cam video of fatal shooting by Aaron Besecker. Buffalo police walked into a house on Minnesota Avenue last week after being told a man known as DC was having a mental health crisis and people were being threatened with knives. The landlord, who had called 911 3 times, led police inside and knocked on the door of DC's rented room. The man behind the door was heard repeatedly yelling, "Call the FBI!" A little more than 2 minutes later, after trying to get the man to open the locked door, a Buffalo police lieutenant stepped forward, according to footage from police body cameras. "Listen, playtime's over," Lieutenant Michael J. Norwood Jr. said, before kicking down the door. In the video, officers see a man holding a knife in each hand and yell at him to drop the weapons. He charges at the officers, one of whom fires his service weapon twice. Charles E. Butler, 58, also known as DC, was shot twice in the torso. He died in surgery at Erie County Medical Center less than an hour after the March 5th shooting. The Buffalo Police Department on Thursday released the body camera footage from the incident, as well as other documents related to the case. The footage generally aligns with how department brass last week described what happened. Interim Police Commissioner Craig Macy had said there was a very significant level of threat that escalated against the officers in a very short period of time. The shooting happened near the vestibule of a multi-unit house on Minnesota, between Main Street and Cordova Avenue. The landlord had called police about his tenant, who he said was suffering from a mental health crisis that caused other tenants to lock themselves inside their rooms. Buffalo police said that information released last week about an ambulance crew being held at knife point at the scene before officers arrived was incorrect. The ambulance crew reported that others were being threatened with knives, Macy said Thursday. Once officers arrived at the house, they were told by the landlord there was currently no one being held at knife point. But Macy said Thursday it was unclear to officers at the scene where everyone was inside the house. And people were in fear for their life, he said. Maybe it wasn't a totally accurate depiction from that radio run being held exactly at knife point, but they were being threatened by a subject with a knife, and they were in fear for their lives. Officers broke down the door and were trying to call Butler out, but did not attempt to enter the room, Macy said. Butler charged at them from about 8 feet away, he said. The tactics and the decision-making are very easy to question, as we're sitting in a nice, safe environment right now, Macy said. These guys were in a very confined space with a guy charging at them with knives. The officer who fired his service weapon, identified by police as Officer Derek Frank Jr., shot twice, with both bullets striking Butler in the torso. Officer Jashawn O. Collins, according to documents released by department, was the officer who deployed his taser to try to stop Butler's advance. Norwood, Frank, and Collins were placed on paid administrative leave following the incident. Buffalo police have been unable to reach Butler's family since the fatal shooting. The department was going to offer the family a chance to review the body cam footage before it was made public. The case is under investigation by detectives in the Buffalo Police Homicide Squad, the Internal Affairs Division, and by the State Attorney General's Office of Special Investigation. Butler moved to the Buffalo area about 7 months ago, and Buffalo police had no prior encounters with him before the call on March 5th, Macy said. Frank and Collins were hired by the department in January 2024, and Norwood has been on the force since January 2013, according to documents released by the department. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. In news out of Washington, as airport lines grow, lawmakers vent frustration with DHS impasse by Kevin Frecking. Republican and Democratic senators vented their frustrations Wednesday with the lack of progress in funding the Department of Homeland Security, which is resulting in more Americans enduring long lines at airports around the country. It's a problem that's expected to intensify as the impasse enters its 4th week. Democrats stressed they were willing to fund some of DHS, but not Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, as well as Customs and Border Protection, without changes in their operations. Republicans made clear that some of the Democratic demands were a non-starter. The result was that each party blocked the other's proposal for temporarily resolving the standoff during an hours-long debate on the Senate floor. The stark divide over a shutdown that began on February 14th was acknowledged by members on both sides of the political aisle. We're in negotiation, however, we're not close, Senator Brian Schatz, Democrat of Hawaii, said at one point. You may think this is some issue that we think we're going to turn to our political advantage, but I promise you, when we saw Renee Good and Alex Preddy killed, this became an issue that was beyond politics. And there are a lot of us who are not going to provide resources to this agency that is acting in such a way that it makes citizens of the United States so unsafe. Some Republicans were just as adamant that they opposed some of the changes Democrats are seeking to make. Well, let me be clear. We're going to do nothing that kneecaps ICE's ability to enforce our immigration laws, said Senator Eric Schmidt, Republican of Missouri. Following the longest federal shutdown in the country's history last week, Congress completed work on 11 of this year's 12 appropriations bills. Only the bill for Homeland Security remains outstanding. Democrats are seeking several changes at the department that include prohibiting ICE enforcement operations at sensitive locations like schools and churches, allowing independent investigations into alleged wrongdoing, requiring warrants to be signed by judges before federal agents can forcibly enter private homes or other non-public spaces without consent, and requiring agents to wear identification and remove their masks. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican of South Dakota, said his side has made repeated overtures to Democrats on a funding bill. He said the last offer on Homeland Security funding came from the White House nearly 2 weeks ago, and there's been no response from the Democrats. Usually around here, in order to get a deal, there has to be a negotiation where the two sides sit down together, Thune said. And my understanding is that has been completely rebuffed by the senator from Washington. The senator Thune was referring to, Senator Patty Murray, the lead Democrat on the Senate Appropriations Committee, said she's continued to talk with Republican colleagues, but those aren't real negotiations. The White House needs to be at the table for that to occur. She said she needed assurance that Stephen Miller, the influential White House Deputy Chief of Staff, would not upend any agreements the senators reach. I am willing to talk to people, but I'm not willing to sit in a room, have coffee, give away a few things, and have Stephen Miller override whatever we all agree to, Murray said. We need to know the White House is serious. DHS has been central to President Trump's sweeping changes on immigration enforcement. Under Trump, the number of people ICE arrests and detains each month has climbed dramatically. The tactics that ICE has employed have generated alarm among Democrats, and some Republicans have also called for a more strategic approach. During bipartisan negotiations earlier this year, appropriations agreed to a DHS funding bill that did include more resources for de-escalation training and $20 million to outfit immigration enforcement agents with body-worn cameras. But that deal unraveled after the Preddy shooting in Minneapolis. My side was not going to stand down and say, "Oh, well, nothing happened," Murray said. For the second time in 2 weeks, Murray offered a proposal to fund all of DHS except for ICE and Customs and Border Protection, but Republicans objected. Similarly, Senator Katie Britt, Republican of Alabama, offered a proposal to fund all of DHS for 2 weeks so that federal workers could get paid and government operations could continue while the two sides negotiate their differences on immigration enforcement. This time, Democrats objected. The result was the standoff continues, but lawmakers were at least talking to each other, perhaps one small sign of progress. The large majority of the more than 260,000 employees at DHS continue to work but are going unpaid. It's the second time in recent months they've had to work without pay after last fall's record 43-day shutdown. The most visible sign of the shutdown has been a shortage of Transportation Security Administration screeners at airports. Houston's secondary airport weathered the worst problems, with lines consistently lasting over 3 hours for much of Sunday and Monday. Passengers also had to wait more than an hour to get through security at several other airports, including New Orleans and Atlanta. DHS, in a social media post Wednesday, blamed Democrats for a shutdown that has led to hours-long security lines at airports across the country, leading Americans to miss their spring break flights. Trade groups are also worried about the economic impact of the travel delays. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce called on Congress to quickly approve a funding bill and end the department's shutdown. Blocking operational funding and paychecks for those who help us travel safely is wrong, and it strains the air travel system, said Neil Bradley, the business group's executive vice president and chief policy officer. Finally today, hackers with ties to Iran take aim at the U.S. and other targets, by David Klepper. Pro-Iranian hackers are targeting sites in the Middle East and starting to stretch into the U.S. during the war, raising the risk of American defense contractors, power stations, and water plants being swept into a wave of digital chaos that could expand if Tehran's allies join the fray. Hackers supporting Iran claimed responsibility for a significant cyber attack Wednesday against U.S. medical device company Stryker. Since the war began February 28th, they have also tried to penetrate cameras in Middle Eastern countries to improve Iran's missile targeting. They have targeted data centers in the region, as well as industrial facilities in Israel, a school in Saudi Arabia, and an airport in Kuwait. Iran has invested heavily in its offensive cyber capabilities while cultivating ties to hacking groups. In recent years, groups working for Tehran have infiltrated the email system of President Trump's campaign, targeted U.S. water plants, and tried to breach the networks used by military and defense contractors. The goal is to wear down the American war effort, drive up the cost of energy, strain cyber resources, and cause as much pain as possible for American companies that depend on the defense industry. Something's going to happen because the gloves are off, said Kevin Mandia, founder of the cybersecurity companies Mandiant and Armadin. Pro-Iranian, pro-Palestinian hackers claim credit for disrupting systems at Stryker, a Michigan-based medical technology company. A group known as Handala said the attack was in retaliation for suspected U.S. strikes that kill Iranian schoolchildren. Like other ideologically motivated hackers, profit is not Handala's goal, according to Ismael Valenzuela, Vice President of Threat Intelligence at the cybersecurity company Arctic Wolf. What distinguishes this group is clear focus on data destruction rather than financial extortion, he said in an email. Polish authorities are investigating a recent cyber attack on a nuclear research facility that may have ties to Iran, though they acknowledge that another group could be behind the attack and using the Iran war to mask its identity. Going forward, U.S. defense contractors, government vendors, and businesses that work with Israel are likely targets, as is critical infrastructure such as hospitals, ports, water plants, power stations, and railways. Pro-Iranian hackers openly discuss their plans in Telegram and other online message boards. "The data centers need to be taken out," wrote one user, as uncovered by researchers at U.S.-based Site Intelligence Group. "They host the brains of USA's military communication and targeting systems." Cyber operations also gather intelligence. For example, Iran's effort to hack into cameras in neighboring countries to aid its missile targeting. Infiltrating U.S. networks, meanwhile, would offer view into military planning or supply chains. The strikes on Iran's military, as well as internet outages, may have limited Iran's cyber attacks in the short term, but experts say Iranian hackers and their allies will aim for quick victories by targeting the weakest links in American cybersecurity. Often, local water plants or healthcare facilities lack the funds and know-how to install the latest software patches or take other security steps. That has made them a favorite target because of the relative ease of penetrating them and because of the panic these disruptions can cause. This can include denial of service attacks in which hackers try to jam a network so legitimate users cannot use it, and website defacements which can prevent a company from communicating with customers. Hack and leak operations, where hackers threaten to release sensitive stolen material, are another possibility. The attacks are not that sophisticated, according to Sean Williams, a former FBI and CIA officer who is now a senior director at cybersecurity firm SentinelOne. But if a business or government agency has failed to keep up with its cybersecurity, it could pay a steep price, he said. "Patch your systems, ensure your firewalls and security solutions are up to date," Williams said. "Remove your stale accounts. All of the cyber hygiene that you should be doing is more critical now than ever. Prepare for disruption." Russia and China present the greatest cyber threats to the U.S., while North Korea is a growing concern. But what Iran has lacked in resources, it has made up for in ingenuity, experts say. In recent years, Tehran's digital warriors have impersonated American activists online to covertly encourage protests against Israel on college campuses. They've set up fake news websites and social media accounts primed to spread false and exaggerated claims before big U.S. elections. In 2024, Iranian hackers infiltrated the email system of the Trump campaign and later tried to disseminate files that the hackers said they stole. Hackers linked to Iran also tried to hack into the WhatsApp accounts of both Trump and his then Democratic opponent, President Joe Biden. The activity prompted the Department of Homeland Security to issue a public warning last year about Iranian cyber threats. Iran, and especially the proxies, don't care how big or smart you are. This is about making an impact, about creating chaos, said James Turgle, a cybersecurity expert who spent 22 years as an FBI agent and is now vice president at Optiv, a Denver-based information security firm. Experts are watching closely to see if Russia, China, or hacking groups allied with either country provide hacking assistance to Iran, mounting attacks intended to undermine American operations in Iran and make it harder for the U.S. to sustain its fight. While China has so far taken a cautious approach, there is evidence that pro-Iranian hackers in Russia are already at work. Researchers at their cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike detected a surge of activity from Russian hackers in support of Tehran since the war began. One group, known as Z-Pentest, claimed responsibility for disrupting several U.S. networks, including some involved in closed-circuit video cameras. The timing of the attack suggests the hackers were targeting U.S. interests because of the war in Iran, according to Adam Myers, head of counter-adversary operations at CrowdStrike. Western organizations should continue to remain on high alert, Myers said. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Friday, March 13th. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your reader today has been Dasha. Thank you for listening.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability